This is Libby Road and the Sound Epistemology Podcast. This episode of the podcast is a recording of an SE 101 room in the Street Epistemology Club on the Clubhouse discussion app, in which we had Chucky from the YouTube channel I Hear You as our guest. It was a great room, including some back channel questions and a member of the audience wanting to explore their claim that 20% of people need religion in order to have a better life. We also talked about the discoverability of street epistemology, using it with friends and family, and how countercultural this conversation approach is, whether through texting, audio, Zoom-style engagements, and having those conversations in person. Let's listen in.
Welcome everyone to the SE 101 room in the Street Epistemology Club, a room for creating critical thinkers. We are currently in the Q&A session, and so we'll be taking questions from the audience, people that are interested in learning more about street epistemology. Today we have Chucky Epistemology as a guest to help you answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We ask that you put yourself back down to the audience once your question has been answered. And if you need any help with that, I can let me know and I can help you put yourself back down to the audience if you need to. If you'd rather not come on stage, we just ask that you can also send me a back channel message. You can tap on my profile picture and you should have a message option there. And any responses or further in future interactions, you can access the back channel feature in the bottom right hand corner of the app. It's like that little paper airplane in the bottom right hand corner. The room is created as a learning environment and it is being recorded. Lastly, I do want to say if anybody has a claim or a belief that they would like to have examined, this would be a good time as well. And we'll be happy to just take a few minutes to examine that as well. Chucky, if you want to maybe tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass it on to David.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Chucky. I run a YouTube channel called I Hear You, where I've been talking with friends and family about their cherished beliefs and try to do sort of semi-SE with them about stuff they believe. I don't know. I guess should I say some background about me or something, or?
Whatever you want to share. Maybe you can let us know how you got into street epistemology and your understanding of what it is.
Okay. So probably I found out about street epistemology like a lot of people. I had a friend who sent me one of Anthony's videos saying, "Hey, check this out," and started watching it, and I feel like very quickly I was like, "Oh, this is something. This is a interesting way to talk to people," and kind of went down that rabbit hole, consuming his videos and Tyrone Wells videos and Reed's videos, and kind of just I started incorporating it into the way that I would talk with friends and sort of exploring that sort of thing, and kind of left it sitting like that for about 2 years before I started actually recording some conversations. And I think I've only put up maybe 10 conversations at this point, but they all except for one have been with like close friends and family, which I feel like is one thing that is maybe different from how most people do this. Like there's not a whole lot of street in my channel. It's just people I know. Yeah. So in terms of what I think it is, so I see it as a tool for talking to people in to have respectful conversations about things that are often prickly. And even though, so I push back on the street part, but I think I want to push back on the epistemology part a little bit. Oh, is somebody talking?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
It looks like we moved Jeff up to the stage.
I see.
He's the first person to ask a question. So as soon as you're done
Gotcha.
with your introduction, it looks like we already have a question from Jeff. So
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and finish, and we'll
Okay.
get to Jeff next.
Yeah, I'm almost done rambling, Jeff. So I was just going to say I sort of push back on the street part because I've never done it on the street. I've never really done it with people I don't know. But I also kind of push back on the epistemology part. I mean, I think it's valuable just to talk to people, just to listen, just to help them clarify their claim. And so, yeah, I see it as a technique to have kind and understanding conversations with people. And delving into epistemology, that's important. Talking to people who have different ideas, that's important. But I think at its root, it's just talking to people and hearing them, listening to them. I think like a lot of people maybe who are interested in this kind of thing, for a long time I would have conversations with people that weren't so respectful and weren't so kind, where you hear a claim and you say, that's ridiculous, how could you possibly believe that? And I feel like it's been a big change to be aware of when you make a claim and to try to avoid making claims if you're trying to explore somebody else's claim. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Chucky, and thanks for agreeing to come into our room today and help us answer people's questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. I'm a big fan of your channel and your style. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, and one thing I failed to mention during the lounge was whenever someone comes up to ask a question, you're our guest, so you have first crack at answering it. So you don't
Okay.
have to wait on us to start answering. Just uh, feel free to just go ahead and start if somebody has one. And it looks like we've got Jeff. Welcome, Jeff. Welcome to Clubhouse, and welcome to our SE 101 room.
Thanks
It's
for
good to
having
see
me.
you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah,
Can you hear me okay?
I
yeah.
can.
Okay, good. So I came upon street epistemology about a little over a year and a half ago. I deconstructed my faith in probably early 2020, and I found Anthony Magnabosco online, and I've got my own YouTube channel now, and I've posted one video, and I've got one more. I've just participated with Reed Nicewonder of Cordial Curiosity. I did a remote SE session with him that he's just posted to YouTube today. And so, yeah, trying to do the street epistemology thing myself, and so I appreciate what you guys are doing here. My question is actually it's more of a claim. Since I deconstructed my faith, I took a pretty hard left turn, so to speak, as far as my thought processes about my views of the world. And I first went, the world would just be a better place if there was no religion at all, and people only used logic. And now I've come to swing the pendulum a little bit more back to the middle, to say I think there are a certain amount of people that need religion in order to have a better life. So that's the claim that I would kind of like to explore, is that I think that some people do need religion in order to it helps them be better people and to live a better life.
Cool. So, real quick, since we don't have any other questions in the queue right now, we can go ahead and do a an SE session with Chucky. That sounds awesome. So yeah, if that's okay with you guys, we'll go ahead and do that. And then for the people in the audience, feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And then it's whenever we get done with this demonstration of street epistemology, we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Sure.
Yep.
Cool. All right, take it away.
Okay. So Jeff, you wanna you wanna spend 10 minutes talking about this?
Yeah, I would, because I'm really trying to sort out what I believe about this.
Okay.
Um,
So
yeah,
I heard. So if I can try to restate it, and maybe this isn't all that you said, but I heard you say that some people need religion in order to do something, or in order to, like, what exactly, where you're coming from with that?
um, I think that some people need religion in order. I think I think there are people who their religious practices or faiths actually keep them from doing things that could harm other people. And so I think there are those cases. So there's some people that are restrained by their religious beliefs, I believe. And also, I think that some people need religion um, as a panacea, perhaps, just something that they can. It helps anchor them. And I think maybe I'm trying to say their psyche or their personality just they wouldn't cope very well, and they would maybe even contemplate suicide if their belief system uh, was found to be false.
Okay, so some people need religion in order to avoid doing harm to themselves or other people. Is that sort of the gist of it?
Okay, that's fair. Yes,
Yeah.
you succinctly, I think, nailed it down. So yeah, I can. Yep, yep.
Okay. Um, okay. So I think that's pretty clear claim. I understand it. So just to kind of help get a sense of where you're at, like, how how many people do you think this applies to? Like, is it a small
Mm,
percentage? Is it
mm,
like half of people? You know?
That's a good question, because that's kind of where I'm trying to sort out, because that's the what is this percentage of people
Right.
that need this? How many people would be okay um, if their belief system foundations were taken away? They stopped believing whatever it is that they particularly believe. Um, and I don't know, but I'm quite certain, as I said, that these people exist. That there are people who are restrained by their belief system from doing harm to themselves or other people. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what the percentage? If I had to say, it'd be small.
Okay.
Maybe 20%, maybe.
Oh,
Of,
okay. So, okay, one out of every five people ish.
kind of this person needs this, or they would be horribly maybe depressed, um, just not live as a fulfilling life, and maybe be more nihilistic, I suppose. And then again, I think there's some of those that I think their religion restrains them from impulses which could be harmful to themselves or other people.
Okay. So I heard you add depression to the claim. So the idea that
Mm,
it's not just that it's not just that they need it to avoid harm to themselves or others, but also in order to live a fulfilling life
yes,
or an
yes,
enjoyable life.
Yes, I think that some people are going to be more content and better off in their mental well-being, psychological well-being, if they have a God belief or a religious belief of some type.
Okay. And I hear you saying that it's not everybody,
I agree. That's right.
but it's some people.
Yes.
Do you think there's anything, these people that this applies to, do you think there's anything that could substitute for religion? Or is it just religion?
Um, I okay. So I'm going to give you a two-part answer, and I apologize. The first part, yeah, the first part is starting in a presupposition of a world or a worldview that has religion in it, right? It exists, and they've been brought up in it and steeped in it from young child. Um, then repeat the question one more time, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to get a sense. Do you think that these people you have in mind, do you think
Oh,
there's
get
any
something else. Yeah. I'm sorry.
do you think there's anything that could replace religion,
That's
yeah,
right.
and fulfill the same purpose?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it's possible over time that we're obviously becoming more irreligious um, as we move. People are leaving churches in droves. Religious beliefs are declining here in the U.S. anyway, and I think that gradual decline will make it more probable and possible for more people to not have to use religion, and they can use other things like just enjoying the here and now, meditation, mindfulness, whatever may help them. Um, but I still think that there are some people that are so
Uh-huh.
they identify themselves so closely to this belief system that it would be um, detrimental to that person's well-being for them to not have that faith rug pulled out from under them.
All right. So sometimes it's useful to imagine like a specific person when talking about things. So let's imagine this kind of person you're thinking about who you you feel like they need religion to avoid doing harm either to themselves or to other people. They, they're really stressed out. The idea that maybe religion isn't true, maybe they get depressed thinking about it, and it seems like they need this in their life. Let's imagine that person. Let's call him Bob.
Okay.
Um, so I'm basically going to ask the same question again, and we'll see if the answer is any different.
Okay.
Do you think there's anything Bob might be able to replace religion with?
Yeah. Oh
Or
yes.
is it like
Oh yes.
irrecoverable?
Oh yeah. There's something that I think he could, but well, it depends on. Well, I guess. Well, if it's Bob, yeah. So is the question then basically is everybody? Is every person? No, Bob.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, it might help to give a name to it, but I kind of wonder. I mean, is Bob you, Jeff?
no.
Okay.
No. My deconstruction was traumatic, without a doubt.
Uh-huh.
But I am absolutely the most content with myself and my
Okay.
life and my
Okay.
worldview that I have now.
Do you,
Yeah,
so do
no.
you have somebody in your life that you're imagining this of? Someone specific that you know?
No, but I think theoretically the odds are that there are people who are restrained by their religion, and they need that they will live a better, more fulfilling life and do less harm to themselves or other people if they have this religious belief.
Okay.
Because mathematically speaking, those people have to exist,
Yeah.
right?
I'll grant you that there's probably one human among 7 billion, right? But there's a big
Oh,
difference between there being 1 and 20% of people. I think that's where the question lies.
yes, it is, and that's where I'm trying to. Yeah, I don't know, but
Yeah.
and I guess again to me it's a difference of yeah.
Can you think of anyone in your life that you think this is true of? Maybe we can.
Um, anyone in
I
my
mean,
life?
obviously you don't have to name them or
No,
give
no, no,
their,
no.
yeah,
I'm
but just
trying.
have someone in mind, maybe.
I'm trying to think. Uh, no, I can't really think of anyone that I know
Okay. So then that
personally.
sort of
Yeah.
raises maybe a obvious question, like what makes you believe this, even though you don't know anybody who's like this?
Just the mathematical probability that the certainty of the mathematics that a person does exist, that the religion makes them a better person.
Can you run me through the mathematics?
No, I mean I couldn't, but uh,
I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying
no,
to see
no,
where you're
no.
coming from. Like,
Just from I'm quite certain that there are people throughout history and that live now that
uh,
their religion restrains them in certain ways.
okay,
And
their
and
religion
it
constrains them in certain ways.
yes, to acting out in a way that could be harm to, like I said, that if they wanted
Right,
to,
right.
if they were a pedophile, they wanted to rape
Okay,
women or whatever, and maybe their religion keeps them from doing those things because they're afraid of going to hell, right?
okay, yeah,
Um, I'm, I'm sure maybe there's people that restrain their natural predilections, I guess you say, uh, on uh, on their belief system. Yeah.
okay,
So that's all I'm basing it on. It's like, and I wonder how, uh, because I guess where I'm at is at one point I said the world would be a better place if there was no religion, and I was ready
yeah,
to like help stamp religion off the face of the earth and do away with it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh,
All right,
and and I'm trying to figure out where.
let's dig into this a little bit. How could we figure out what this percentage is?
How could we figure out the percentages?
Because I hear you saying that sort of the idea is that there's just so many people, someone's bound to be like this. You don't know any personally,
Well,
but
I bet that you could probably gather statistics of people who stopped believing their faith and committed suicide.
okay, okay. So let's imagine we found someone who lost their faith and committed suicide. Does that tell us whether or not they could have substituted religion for something else?
Or substituted something else for religion.
Yeah. Like maybe what they needed was somebody to say, "Hey, I care about you,
Right.
and you may feel a hole in your life now, but there's reasons for living."
Hmm. Okay. Um,
Like, how do we know that there's no way to fix these people? I guess that's my question,
I
like my
gotcha.
fundamental question.
Um, I guess we don't know that there's no way. Um, very interesting. Um, great questions, by the way. Thank you so much because
Yeah, absolutely.
I really wanted to explore this topic, and you're helping
Yeah.
me, and you're helping me pour through this.
So I think the thing about all this is, like, you can spend hours and hours talking about pretty much anything,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's helpful just to. So now I'm sort of speaking to, I guess, the other people listening, but like it's helpful just to listen to someone and help clarify their own claim. Because probably if you were to restate the whole thing from scratch, you'd say it a little differently than you would have originally.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think when you wiggled it down to causing harm to themselves or someone else, but I also think the general well-being plays a part of it as well. That depression, whether a person would be depressed or how much joy they have in their life, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this in particular, a good amount. Maybe we
Yeah.
should see if anybody else wants to talk about a claim or have any questions, or just because otherwise I think we could talk about this for 2 hours.
Thanks, Chucky. I really appreciate it. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, sure.
You really helped me. I've got some things to chew on, and
Yeah, absolutely.
that's what I wanted. Thanks a lot.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That was great. Thanks for participating, Jeff. Maybe before you go back to the audience, can you give us a little bit more feedback on how the conversation went for you?
It was really good. I felt like Chucky, you really made a point to listen and really try to understand where I was at and what I was saying. You picked up when I added depression onto the list,
Uh-huh.
and you had some very good questions about the percentages and how could we test it, and so sorry about my dogs there.
It's okay.
So no, it was really really good. Um, I've been wanting to explore this claim with someone, and I'm glad I saw the notice on the Street Epistemology
Yeah.
Discord server, and I went and got an account here for this today and joined up. So hoping
Oh,
to
excellent.
have some conversation today. So
Yeah, I really hear where you're coming from. Like what I hear in your question is I'm really concerned for people. I'm worried about, what happens if we start pulling threads
yes,
and things start coming unraveled. Maybe people might suffer. And so I hear
that's
real
right.
concern in
Yes.
your question. Yeah.
To the ethics of street epistemology.
Yeah.
Anthony Magnavosco was just on Mormon Stories this week. I don't know if any of you
Yeah,
guys
yeah, yeah.
got a chance
I
to see
watched
that.
the first couple.
Yeah, and when he was interviewing that pastor, I forgot the guy's name. He's a ex-Mormon, then an evangelical. He leads a church now, and Anthony basically declined to move forward because this guy just basically came out and said, I've been without religion and I'm a horrible person. I go do horrible things."
Yeah.
And and so the ethical considerations of asking good questions to your interlocutor to make sure that um, that you're not taking away something that is could in fact be um, more harmful to that person.
Yeah. I think, most people don't want to do harm to people. And it's important to keep that in mind, that the things that we do could be harmful, but at the same time, there's two things you could do. One is to turn that into a new claim. So if you're talking to somebody and they say that they're religious, and maybe you start to wonder, oh, does this person need religion?
Mm,
You could ask them, do you think that you need religion? Because that's what Anthony often does, right?
that's a good question. That is a good question.
But
Yeah.
then if they say yes, you could try exploring that claim. What makes you think that without religion you'd be a bad person? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
makes you think that there's nothing you could substitute?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you could actually explore that particular claim with somebody instead of talking about religion.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, Chucky.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. I think, like I said, most people don't want to do harm, and so I think a lot of people are worried about this. It's one of the things that made me want. I'm not sure whether I'm putting the cart before the horse, but I saw that I was having conversations with my family that were becoming aggressive or antagonistic.
Oh, I had horrible,
Yeah.
destructive conversations when I first deconstructed my faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just, it was just horrible conversations with my wife, with my mother,
Right.
my brother, just horrible conversations. And I
Yeah.
happened to, like I said, I happened upon Peter Boghossian's book, A Manual for Making Atheists, and
Right.
then I found Anthony Magnabosco, or it may have been the other way around. I can't remember which way around that was. It all happened about the same time,
Yeah.
and I immediately just went, oh wow, oh oh wow, I can really have
Right.
respectful conversations with people I might not necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
And it was just the light bulb, and I've been doing it ever since. And like I said, I've gone out and I've done. I went to my town square and took my GoPro and my phone, and I did record one interview, and I did one with Reed. So
Yeah.
this is just, I love it. This is fantastic stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how different it is to ask questions and to then be asked questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
and how cool it is to be on the other side, asking questions
Right.
and changing your mindset to go, I'm going to clear my mind. I'm
Right.
going to set all of my biases aside, and I want to listen to what this person has to say
Yeah.
and really try to understand them. And this technique has really helped me um, exhibit much more empathy as a human being. I'm much more empathetic, so this has been a fantastic tool for me as a human being.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jeff. And I had a request. You said that you have your own YouTube channel. If you wouldn't mind, if you could send that to me either here in the back channel, or you can send me the link
Am I
on
sa-
this on
is this sound epistemology I'm talking to?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
My
think
name's David. I had
okay,
it
David.
I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out how to switch my the name that it shows and the name in the parentheses. So I need to get that fixed. But yeah,
So yeah,
on
my channel name is Honest Inquiry,
okay,
and
cool,
if you can go on Reed Nice Wonders channel, which is Cordial Curiosity, and he just posted the virtual video, and I just sent you the link to my channel, and
perfect,
I'll be posting that snippet of what Reed posted to his channel today. He's sending me the raw video.
perfect,
Um, but I've sent you a link to my channel, and I'll also send you a link to. Well, actually, I just sent you a link to Reed's channel, to the one that Reed just posted. And I'll shut up now and let you go on with your show, and I'll text you the link to my YouTube channel.
excellent. Thanks so much. And I'm glad that you found the announcement on Discord. I'm glad those efforts are not wasted. So good to see you. Um, Couple of things. We had a hand come up a little bit ago, um, and I don't see the hand up there now. So I'm just gonna put that out there. Whoever had their hand up, if they still want to ask a question, yeah, go ahead and put your hand back up, and we'll bring you up.
I think
This
they
might.
left they left the room, and I was looking for them, but they left.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, no problem. Hopefully they'll be back. Uh, this might be a good time to do a quick reset.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So yeah, everyone, welcome to the SC 101 room in the Street Epistemology Club. We're currently taking questions from the audience. So if anyone has a question, maybe a comment on what they heard, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll bring you up. We just ask you that once your questions has been answered, that you bring yourself back down to the audience uh, to give a chance for the next person to come up. Or if you don't want to come up, you can also send me a back channel message. If you tap on my profile, you'll see the message button, so you can send me a message there as well, and I'll read the question on your behalf if you don't want to come up. I can keep it anonymous as well. So yeah, we have Chucky with us. That's gonna help answer any of your questions. It, and I have a. Oh, go ahead, Chucky. I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, we didn't talk too much about it, but the thing that interests me most about this is trying to talk to friends and family, and I think anything we can do to sit around the Thanksgiving table without arguing is a positive, and yeah. But that's all I was gonna say. What were you gonna ask?
Yeah, that's a great comment. And on that comment that you just said, we've had a few people comment on either they were thankful that their partner learned this method because of how
Oh
conversations used to
yeah,
go, and we had another one that where they were wanting to know more about it so they can share it with their partner because of
yeah,
the way conversations were currently going. And so this idea of having better conversations when it relates to relationships is definitely something very real to people. And
yeah.
yeah, so I just wanted to highlight that. But my question was regarding that interaction that you had with Jeff. It's just a great conversation. Um, and the claim that he had, actually, this is something that I've thought about myself, and I've personally heard stories like this, right, where people have kind of commented on how important these beliefs are. But the conversation that you guys just had should made me think and maybe reframe the way I thought about it, right? Because I was thinking about it from the point of view of Jeff,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering what you think, Chucky. The Maybe it's not just religion that plays this role in people's life. Maybe it has more to do with a certain category of or attachment that you have to certain things. Because I have heard stories of people changing drastically when they lose a loved one as well.
Yeah,
When they lose, especially when they lose someone that they thought were, you know, an angel sent from heaven. I say that metaphorically, right? Where they would thought they were the best person in the world, always kind, and then something very unfortunate happens.
yeah,
And after that happens, they completely change their lives and they do start doing harm to others. And so so after this conversation, what I'm thinking is maybe the way to think about this claim is that there's a category of events or things that could fall under that are uh, kind of like religion, but it could be many other things as well. So it's not like religion is special in that way. It has to do with the way we attach ourselves to certain things, and then when that thing's taken away, it can have this effect. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. What I'm about to say isn't street epistemology because I'm gonna make my own claim, but
sure.
I think that could be, and I think that's pretty plausible. But another way of looking at it would be it may just be that losing a cherished belief is quite similar to other kinds of loss, like the loss of a loved one. And so, I think it's no one's surprised that, when let's say, maybe you lose your mother or maybe you lose your spouse, that you get pretty shaken up. Um, and I think it's difficult. It's difficult to figure out how to put the pieces of your life back together. Um, but it's just a different way of looking at it. Maybe to look at it in terms of just loss.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, that's all I have.
yeah. I think that's a really, maybe a really profound point. Like how the question would be, how is losing a cherished belief like losing a loved one? And I think I have some confidence in that.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Yes, as do I. I think the way you put it is actually perfect to illustrate where my mind was going with that.
Yeah, yeah. It yeah. It's a tough thing. I mean, losing religion is probably it's probably as transformative as losing a loved one. And Yeah. It's been a long time since I personally lost religion. I probably lost religion 20 years ago, and haven't really been tempted by it since then. But um, it's tough. It's scary, and it's hard to figure out how to make sense of things. You know, when everything fit in this pattern, and now and then there's nothing there. It's a whole.
Yeah, during that conversation, ethical considerations came up,
Right.
and I thought I would take this opportunity to remind everybody that uh, there is a street epistemology course being developed literally as we speak. And one of the modules is ethical considerations. So keep your eye out for that course to come out soon. And if you have questions about ethical considerations, that module specifically would be one that you'd probably want to check out. So yeah, stay tuned for the course to come out. We're pretty excited about that. And you mentioned, Chucky, about using SE with friends and family. I, I was wondering, and I asked this of most of the people that I talked to about this that have been practicing for a while.
Hmm.
Um, what are some of the differences, if any, are with using SE that you apply to a conversation that you have with a friend or family member versus, say, a stranger?
I'm going to write down your question. There was something else I wanted to say about the ethics thing. So I'll come back to the difference between friends and strangers. So with the ethics thing, so I can't speak obviously for the rest of the SE community. I'm only speaking for myself. But it ties into this friends question, because I don't think anyone, or rarely, just, let's say your cousin or your aunt or your nephew or whatever come to you, and they have a question, they want to talk about something, or maybe you're hanging out and having dinner, and they make a claim, and they're drawing you into a conversation. No one can stops and worries about the ethics of talking to them, and maybe they should, but I'm not really sure they should. I mean, a conversation is a conversation. And if you're going to be talking to your aunt and your uncle, and they come to you and they, one thing is for sure, don't force anything on anybody. But as long as it's a conversation, having a street epistemology style conversation is almost, this is definitely a claim I'm making, but it's almost definitely going to be a better conversation than the kind of conversation you would have had without listening to them, where you just, oh, I hear what you're saying, but I totally disagree. Here's my claim. Um, and I kind of wonder if we worry about this stuff too much in the community. Um, if your cousin comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about this thing. Let's talk about it," or they just make a claim. Are there really ethical considerations to answering their question? I'm not sure.
Would you say that a conversation with a friend or family member already has the implied consent that you would normally seek out to get during a conversation with a stranger?
Yeah,
Would
I
that?
think I think that's a big part of it, right? Like, the, so don't get me wrong, right? I'm obviously not saying you should force yourself into other people, and hey, let's have a conversation. But
Mhm.
if someone's coming to you and they, let's say your spouse comes home, they've had a difficult day, and they make a claim, right? And they say, my boss hates me, right? And this is a common thing. probably probably everybody's experienced something like this. Their friend comes to them and makes a claim. Now, before you're introduced to street epistemology, you're gonna respond to that, and you're gonna say, "Oh man, that sucks. What happened? What did they do? Your boss is an asshole," or you're gonna say all sorts of stuff. I, sure, you're changing them by having that conversation, and you might say something that upsets them. You might say, "Well, I'm not sure your boss is an asshole. It sounds like maybe you're just having a rough day or something, right?" And then they go, "Oh, you don't believe me, and everybody gets upset. Every conversation we have with anybody is beset with these ethical considerations. So I don't think there's any. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's nothing special about street epistemology. That, like, if anything, it helps you have better, more productive, more kind conversations with people than the ones you're already having with these people. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Now, this is
interesting.
obviously my claim. Yeah.
Right, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes get uh, a response of you you have to take more into consideration getting consent with a friend and family member. So yeah, it's interesting how, there's different styles, different people use it differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that. I do have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Um,
If I could just say one more thing, just to kind
yeah,
of close that up.
yeah,
I
please.
think I think the difference is maybe where you're coming from, right? Like when your spouse comes to you and says, "My boss hates me," if you're coming from this place where you're thinking, "I need to change my spouse's mind," right? You've got goals, you've got motivations, and so there's maybe more ethics to consider. But if you're just helping them explore what they think about it, which a lot of people say should be the sort of where you should be coming from, um, no matter what the circumstance. I think you're in the right place, right? You're just having a better conversation.
Right, right. And so
Okay,
so many so many times the answer to a lot of these questions I find is what is your goal?
yeah, yeah,
And then go from there.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
cool.
I think it's like there's a world of difference between approaching somebody who is religious and you want to try to maybe change their mind versus someone bringing it up to you and they want to talk to you, right? These are two very different situations.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and ask the question that I have from the audience. And then I want to go ahead and give Early and Alfonso a chance to kind of chime in case they've got something also. But the question is, and they want to start by thanking the guests. So this person is thanking you, Chucky, for fruitful conversations, and they want to ask you whether you believe truth is monumental or not, meaning of greatest importance, and should thus be thrived for.
Okay. Is truth of monumental importance and should be thrived for?
Yeah.
This sounds like just a personal question, right? This is not like helping them explore their belief about it.
Right. It sounds
I,
like they want to know where you are as far
yeah,
as truth being monumental or not, or
yeah. I think for me personally, truth is very important. Um, I think I think as a way of maybe shorthand, truth is important enough for me that I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to be maybe even unhappy to learn the truth. in exchange for truth is what I'm trying to say. I would prefer to know the truth than to be comfortable in most situations. So yeah, for me at least, it's really important. I feel like without the truth, we can't make good decisions about the world around us, about people we care about.
Great, thanks. If that person that asked that question has any follow-up, just let me know and I'll ask any follow-up questions. You're welcome to come up on stage. I know that sometimes um, you may not want to for privacy reasons or whatever, and that's completely fine. So yeah, we'll just try to answer as many questions as we can. Early, Alfonso, did you have anything you wanted to share? We're coming up on about halfway through the room, so just going to give you an opportunity to share whatever you'd like so far.
I had a go earlier, so Alphonse, I don't know if you have something else. I'm good for now.
I have a follow-up from that question, Chucky, and it says, is there anything more important than truth? Can there ever be?
It's a good question. I guess the honest answer is I don't know the answer. When you start talking about the most important thing, that's always tricky. But really, all I can say is that truth is important in the sense that whatever it is that you care about, maybe you care about something else, something X or Y, in order to properly deal with X and Y, in order to explore it or to take care of it or to have a relationship with it, you need to know the truth about it. And so truth has got to be somewhere in the foundation of pretty much any endeavor, I think. But that's really all I can say.
Awesome. Yeah, this comes up a lot in some of these rooms. And I would offer that from my perspective, there's not a lot of things that I care more about than having my beliefs align with reality, which is kind of my definition of, believing true things.
Yeah.
However, there is one, and I'll steal this from Reed, which is a higher value than that could be um, the ability to have my mind changed.
Hmm. It's interesting. It's a really interesting idea. I think in practicality, changing your mind. I mean, in some sense, that's what we're here talking about, epistemology. Like being able to change your mind seems fundamental in order to find the truth. But philosophically, if you could just be given the truth, and you wouldn't need to change your mind. But that gets into philosophy, and I'm not so interested in philosophy.
Yeah, I guess it's more along the lines of being open to being able to have your mind changed
Yeah,
if you have sufficient reasons to do so.
yeah. I think in the real world, when we're not talking about a hypothetical, being able to change your mind is also one of the things necessary in order to come to the truth.
Right.
My sort of big claim, if I had to say like what the thing that I'm afraid of looking around at the world today is the people who are at 100% on any belief, really, because to be at 100% means you do not think that you could possibly be wrong. And that terrifies me, honestly. If you can't change your mind about something, even upon being presented evidence to the contrary, what sort of ramifications does that have? It seems to me that's the difference, being between 99% and being 100%. That's the difference between a fervent believer and being a suicide bomber. And I don't know. I strongly encourage people to not be at 100% on anything. But again, I'm making claims now, so.
I have a
That's
quick comment.
perfectly allowed here.
Okay, all right, excellent.
Something like this came up the other day in one of a conversation we were having with one of my other atheist friends here in Clubhouse, and they were asked the question. No, the claim was evolution doesn't care about truth, and this is in a different context. I'm not going to get too deep to explaining what the context was, but that was said. I remember the person that heard it, they kind of reacted with, "Well, that's not true." And I actually tend to agree with the claim, right? And to bring it into the topic here, when it comes to epistemology and certain topics, definitely we want to be aligned with the truth. The original question that was asked, I think, was maybe vague enough. Maybe that was on purpose, where they left it kind of open. And I don't think that when you look at the big picture, I don't think truth is always what leads or what makes things better. Even when it comes to social interactions and relationships, truth can sometimes be something that's more hurtful and harmful than 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 it can help. And then there's many other interactions as well where maybe having some sort of imagination or an imaginary reality can actually lead you to avoid certain pitfalls or go to places that maybe you couldn't have otherwise gone to. And so I personally have a very strong connection with truth, and just because of the way I am, but I have learned that it's not always what's in the front. It's not always, I forget what the wording was that the question the person that made the question asked, but
The
I
forefront.
wouldn't agree.
Monumental, yeah.
Monumental was the word, yeah, monumental. So I would say that it's not monumental, but in certain contexts, it's imperative. But when you put the question vaguely, just leave it open like that. I would say that it's not.
It's that age-old question, right? Is it more important to live a happy life in ignorance, or would you rather have knowledge and understand the world better, even if you understand that it's not, even if understanding it leads to less enjoyment? But all this is really philosophy. I think in the
Yeah.
day-to-day world, right, what we really have is imperfect knowledge about almost everything. There's no way to get to the ultimate truth, the fundamental truth, the truth. All we have are ways of better and better approximating it. So, I don't know. I wonder if maybe we're philosophizing too much.
I agree. I was about to bring up Plato's cave, so I think
Right.
I'm gonna stop there. So that's a good call, Chucky.
Yeah. It's one thing to say, the ultimate truth versus, eternal conscious torture and all this stuff, these things. But like, again, think about the claim your spouse comes to you and says, my boss hates me, right? And then it's like, pick a specific claim and think about that. Do you want to know the truth? Would knowing the truth help you decide whether to quit or to stay at your job? Would knowing the truth help you cope better, right? These are the things that matter in life, and so always bring it back to realistic scenarios, I think helps.
Yeah, so we're a little over halfway through. Just want to check in with you specifically, Chucky. You doing okay as far as being comfortable and stuff here?
Oh yeah, yep. And I've got another hour.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to maybe touch a little bit on the truth versus happy thing. It might be too philosophical, but I've got kind of an unofficial poll going of me asking people that question, like, would you rather have the truth or would you rather be happy? And it seems like the older the person is, the more likely their answer would be to be happy. And I was wondering what you thought about that. What could maybe be causing more more on the older side of people saying happy, and on the younger side, people saying truth. Just something to think about, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like that matches my expectation as well. It's funny because some of the street epistemology people get together and play poker on the weekends and over voice video chat. And we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty split, I think, in the room whether or not you would trade happiness for truth. Um, so yeah, I think as you age, you're less you're less a knight errant, and you're more. Um, I'm not going to say what you're more, but you're less tilting at windmills, and it's one thing to say I want to know the absolute truth about everything. Damn the consequences. Um, and so I understand how with age that sort of feeling of justice, righteousness mellows. Um, but I just go back to the idea that whatever it is you care about, X, Y, or Z, to interact with that thing in the way that you care about, you need to know about it. You need to understand it, and that's what the question means to me.
Yeah, I wonder how much it correlates with, the way that they advise you with investments. Like the older you are, the
Right.
less risky you want to be,
Yeah.
and the younger you are, the more the likelihood that you want to take bigger risks is
Yeah.
higher. So yeah, just something to think about. I did, however, want to mention that the person asking the question in the back channel appreciates your answers, so thanks for that.
Yeah. If anyone wants to make a claim about that, we can try having a street epistemology conversation about it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
but I,
I
I
was gonna
wanted to.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to acknowledge that you, David, had asked a question about the differences between friends and strangers, and we haven't gotten back to that.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to expand on what you were saying about that.
In the meantime, while we wait for somebody to come with a claim.
Yeah, and when you're done, I'll we can do another room reset, and hopefully we'll have some questions from the audience by then.
Okay.
So yeah,
Um,
go ahead and maybe expand on how the approach would maybe be different between someone that's a friend or family member versus a stranger on the street.
yeah. Um, so like I said, I've mostly done this with friends and family, and I feel like the few times that I've done this with strangers have been on, Discord or like today. Um, it's so much easier with people you don't know. I think that's the easiest thing to say. Like you no offense to anyone here or anyone I've talked to on Discord, but I don't really care about you as much, right? Like when I'm talking to my brother or when I'm talking to my father, like these are the relationships that I don't want to ruin this. I don't want to say something wrong. I don't want to step on their toes, but at the same time, I have these emotions, right? It's really important to me that they believe the correct things and things like that. So there's a lot more at stake in those conversations. So I think what I'm trying to say is you really have to rein in all these urges, and you have to be willing to step out of yourself a little bit and be like, look, I'm just going to try to objectively listen to what you're saying, understand what you're saying, maybe poke at it a little bit. How did you come to know this? Is that a reliable way of knowing things? But at the end of the day, you want to be able to go to lunch with them. You want to be able to call them when you're upset, and for them to call you when they're upset. So it's a bit of a different beast. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's certainly the most salient thing to me.
Yeah, it sounds like, and that's totally fair about, you care more about some people than others. But it's that investment that we have with our friends
Yeah,
and family that we want to keep intact. Whereas if you're just running into somebody in an elevator, you know,
right,
that investment isn't as important. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's worth even slowing down even more talking to friends and family, and it's worth cutting the conversation short. It's worth saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't talk about this anymore. Um, at the risk of maybe not changing their mind, that kind of thing. At the risk of not exploring it in 2 hours worth of depth. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that principle of knowing when to end a conversation would apply
right,
it in that situation, I
right.
think, a lot.
With
Yeah.
all of that said, street epistemology style conversations, and again, this is my claim, I just think that they're naturally going to be better taken. They're naturally going to, you know, be good for your relationship, especially when you sense those little prickly feelings coming in. Um, since I started, I don't know, looking into SE and trying out SE, I've tried to have conversations with family members, like one who is an anti-vax person. Um, with my grandfather, so I lost faith probably 20 years ago, and he's very religious. And after retirement, he actually became a preacher, and he's always been very, I mean, devoted to religion. And for 20 years, I avoided telling him, I avoided talking to him about it, I've avoided the question. And I finally called him and asked if he wanted to talk about religion. And we had an amazing conversation where, we were honest with each other, and we came out of the conversation understanding each other better. Um, all those things I was afraid of upsetting him, I was afraid of hurting him. Um, I won't say they weren't real concerns. They were real concerns, but being able to put that distance, being able to say, okay, for at this point, I'm going to stop making claims and I'm going to listen to your claim. It just changes the whole tenor of the conversation, and that's super valuable. Like that's a valuable thing to have with somebody you care about. Um,
Yeah, well said.
yeah.
So, let's let's do a reset, and hopefully we'll have some questions from the audience, or if somebody has a claim that they want to examine, we can bring them up on stage.
Yeah, so everyone, we're currently in the Q&A session of the room. If you have any questions or have a claim or comment, feel free to come on stage. And we have Chucky that's helping us answer any SE questions you may have. We just ask that if you, once your question has been answered, that you bring yourself back down to the audience so we can let the next person back on stage. Other than that, yeah, if anybody has a claim that they would like to have examined or a question, feel free to raise your hands. Or lastly, you can also send me or any of the moderators a back channel message, and if you and we'll ask the question on your behalf if you do not want to come on stage.
We can also turn this around. I'd be interested in hearing from people in the audience who have started dabbling with street epistemology. Has anybody tried to have a conversation with a relative? How did your Thanksgiving go?
Right, yeah, that's also an option. Like if you wanted to be the person that brings a claim, Chucky, as like a guinea pig, if somebody wants to practice street epistemology with you, that definitely that would we've done that before and it went really well. Um, so yeah, I did have a question about something we talked about before, um, and it has to do with moving away or moving beyond atheism and how that affects discoverability for
Oh yeah,
street epistemology. Um, it- there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are practitioners of the approach, um, that discovered street epistemology through the atheism community. Um, and it kind of brought up a question for me, like, is moving away or beyond atheism a good idea as far as its discoverability? Um, that might be interesting to kind of explore, and maybe early, Alfonso, you can kind of chime in on this. Um, it kind of goes along with the subject that comes up or has been coming up about how to make SE more entertaining. We've kind of joked around in the past where, what we need is people practicing the method with like bikinis and explosions in the background and doing it on motorcycles. Like, I'm not sure that it's designed to be entertaining,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And
Yeah,
from my point of view, I'm watching SE conversations on YouTube and I'm completely captivated. I'm so focused in on it, and it's
yeah,
because I think that I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm interested in within the
yeah,
conversation, and somebody that may not be familiar with street epistemology, they may find it pretty dull. So I don't know, things to maybe to kind of touch on. What do you think about all that, Chucky?
yeah. It's a good question. I think there's a big difference between the realm of like street epistemology as a thing that people watch on YouTube and street epistemology as a way to talk to your best friend, right? Because like once I started using some of these ideas, and I'm not even talking about being fancy, I'm not talking about recording. I'm not talking about saying, "Hey, let's have a conversation." I'm talking about someone comes to you with a claim. They say, I'm trying to think of some recent examples. Um, But you get a call from your friend, and they say, hey, what's going on? You start talking, and then they say something that means something to them, and they're stressed out, they're anxious, they're maybe hurting, and how do you respond? You could give them advice, you could listen to them. Street epistemology, or this SE style conversation, I keep saying SE style, just hearing them out, asking clarifying questions, saying, is this what you mean? Is this what you're saying? How do you know that things are as bad as you feel? How do you know that the situation is so dire? You're stressed out about, I don't know, not being able to afford something, or your job, or family troubles. Your friend comes to you and they're stressed about these things. Say, how bad do you think it is? How serious is this? Is there any way? Is there any way that it's not as bad as you think? Right? These are the kinds of questions that we sort of ask naturally. But if you think of it as being an SE conversation, it fits just as well. Instead of saying, "Oh, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You'll pull through." That might not be helpful. It comes at it with a perspective of your worries aren't valid, and I think that makes people defensive. So I know I'm rambling, but I guess I'm just to try to summarize it as like, these things aren't just about a belief in God or belief in ghosts or whatever. People make claims all the time. I'm really scared about not being able to pay the bills this month. How worried are you? What could be done? Is there anything? I don't know. You can break down these sort of fears. You can break down these anxieties. All right, I'll shut up.
Yeah, it sounds like using street epistemology could allow you to be less dismissive
Yeah.
in phrases that maybe our culture has programmed us to just automatically say when we hear, things
Yeah.
like that, like everything's going to be okay,
Yes.
don't
Yes.
worry.
Yes.
And so SE could kind of demonstrate that empathy that we have with the other person, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Did you want to talk about how, like, because we want to make these rooms better and more informative, but also maybe a little bit more entertaining? Do you have any suggestions on how SE could be more entertaining to people that don't know anything about it? We can just start there.
Well, I guess what I would say is, these rooms are for people who have already gotten interested. But at that point, the job is done in a way, right? Like, I think what we're doing is the right thing. We're talking about it. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Let's try this. That didn't work. Does this work better? The real trick is to have that first conversation with your partner. That's different. They impromptu, they're in the grocery store with you, they say something, it ruffles your feathers, and you say, no, I'm not going to bite, I'm going to listen. And say, hey, maybe I want to try this thing that I've been reading about or listening to. And it's my experience has been the people who have had these conversations with, they say, "What are you doing? What was that? What is going on here?" and then a week later, they tell me that they've tried it with their significant other. They've tried it with their spouse or partner, and that they felt different. So I know this is like not the answer to your question, which is how to make it more entertaining. The thing that makes this matter more is go out and have your first conversation with somebody, and then you'll be in this state where you're going to be interested in it. And like you said, David, you watch these things, in rapture, because they are interesting. But you already know how well it works. You already know how useful it is. So go out and experience that for yourself. That would be. I'm not answering your exact question, but this is the advice that I have.
Great, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that helps. Early Alfonso, did you have anything to maybe ask or add?
We're opening a piñata right now, so I can't right now.
Wow, celebrate safely.
That was funny. That was great. I actually have a question from the audience. If this is good time, David.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, I have two. Okay. So, first question: can we hear examples of using SE style when we hear positive comments in order to empathize and really promote the positive feelings and experience? That's the first question.
Can you read that again?
Sure. Can we hear examples of using SE style when we hear positive comments in order to empathize and really promote the positive feelings and experience?
I
That's
guess
an interesting question.
Yeah. I usually think of it more in terms of challenging negative experiences. So someone comes to you and they're stressed out, for example. I'm not sure I would necessarily try to have an SE conversation when somebody's happy about something. Although maybe if you think their happiness is unjustified. But maybe I'm not quite understanding where the question's coming from.
I wonder if it has to do with can SE be used to promote good feelings? That's
Oh,
kind of how
yeah.
that's
Okay,
how
yeah.
I interpreted it, and that could be completely wrong, but still interesting.
That
What do you
makes a lot more sense, yeah. I'm trying to think of concrete examples. I've mentioned a couple, but someone, trying to think of what's this last conversation I had with my friend. But I have a friend who's going through relationship troubles, right? And he came to me and he's talking about a girl who he's not sure whether she wants to date him and all this kind of stuff, and their relationship is sort of in trouble. And you can do SE about that. You can say, what do you think's going on? How confident are you? What are the reasons for your belief? What things could you learn that would bring you up and down the confidence scale? And it's the same. This goes back to what David had asked earlier, like moving away from religion. It seems so obvious to me that this isn't a thing for religion. This is a thing for any conversation you want to have with somebody you care about. And it's the same questions, right? What would make you more confident? What would make you less confident? But you can do these things about anything that matters to somebody. And I had this conversation the other day with a friend who wasn't sure how to interpret signs from his girlfriend. And it's wild. It works the same way, right? He came out of the conversation going, "Oh, I think I know what I need to do. I think I understand what's going on better." That's a valuable way to interact with people.
We do have a second question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is going to be really fast. But I think that having demonstrably sufficient reasons for holding a conclusion is a pretty good feeling for me.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. That's a good point.
yeah. Go ahead, Earl.
Okay, so the next question was for Chucky. How do you deal with friends and family who have strong beliefs, have a conversation with you, and refuse to concede a point slash can't think of any argument that would go against their belief slash go down a point on the confidence scale? Let me reread that again.
I think I got it. Yeah. How do you
Okay.
deal? What I heard was, how do you deal with a friend or family member who you have this conversation with and won't budge?
Right.
And I think it kind of goes back to something that I had said earlier. Like, if this relationship matters to you, ultimately you have to stop pushing. But it doesn't mean that conversation is a waste, right? If you have a conversation, you sit down and you say, "Look, I know that this belief in often religion, is important to you. Why don't you tell me about it? Help me understand it. What is giving you this confidence? What makes you think that it's true?" Um, just understanding where they're coming from can be valuable, and you might appreciate that their perspective is more nuanced than you originally thought. This has happened to me a lot. I have a friend, the friend who introduced SE to me, and she'll make a claim, and boy, it'll piss me off. I'll hear it and I think, "Oh, she's so stupid. She's so wrong. She doesn't know what she's talking about." But I'll stop and I'll go, "Okay, how confident are you that this is true?" And she'll say 60%. And I go, "Oh, I thought you were at 100. I'm so glad you're at 60. I feel like 60 makes sense, right?" And we understand each other better. We understand where the other person's coming from. Maybe she'll give a reason. "Oh, I didn't even have even thought about that. You're right. Okay, I see how you're not at 0. I see how you're above 0." And so ultimately that's what matters, right? What matters is the relationship you have with these people. And if those relationships matter to you, understanding the other person should matter more than forcing your beliefs on them. That's how I see it, at least.
Yeah, it seems like whenever our goal is to understand the other person, uh, there's a byproduct, and that byproduct is them better understanding themselves. Like, if you
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to share their feelings and their views out loud, they're able to hear them say what their understanding is, and that can offer a lot of clarity to that person. And if somebody is more clear about their understanding of their claim or their belief or their conscious assumption or whatever you want to call it, I think that's a I think that's a win, you know,
Yeah.
and whether they move up and down the scale, that's one thing, but having a better understanding of what they think is true, I think I can't think of any situation where that would be harmful. And we've had people in this room question that, like they'll ask, or they even maybe have made the claim that if somebody has a better understanding of their false belief, that could be harmful. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, they might stay at 100%, but having the conversation, they'll almost definitely change the claim itself. And they'll, add more qualifiers. They'll add more, exceptions to the claim. And the SE in conversations, relationships in general, it's not about getting someone to say, "Oh, you've gotten me. I see the light. I've changed my mind." It's about giving them the space to to change their mind on their own. And sometimes all it takes is just saying it out loud. And you can see this in videos where somebody will say something, and then the street epistemologist will ask them, "So you're saying, you know," and then repeat it. And they say, "Well, no." Like, they just said the exact same thing, but hearing it out loud, they just naturally back off from it, and they change the claim a little bit. And that's just as valuable as changing the confidence, right? They're adding qualifiers on their own.
Yeah, and if it happens to be that you you repeat their claim in in the way that they understand it, or even maybe a better way of saying it than they had, then that means that they felt heard.
Yeah,
And that's what your channel is all about, right? Like
yeah, yeah. I think that
feeling
in
heard.
and of itself is valuable.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any claim that you won't examine, Chucky?
There's claims that I wouldn't make videos about. But in terms of if somebody wants to talk about something privately, um, you know, if the relationship matters to me, then I want to be there for them.
Got it. Um, would you have discovered street epistemology if you were not in the atheist community?
So as a matter of just, yeah, you're talking about how people find this thing. I think the answer is yes. I was introduced to it by a friend, I think I mentioned earlier, who sent me a video going, "Look, check this out. What do you think this is about?" And it wasn't really about religion, or it wasn't coming from, an atheist friend. It was just a friend who thought it was interesting. So I think I would have seen it, yeah. And I guess I'll add to that. Most of the conversations that I want to have with friends and family are not about religion. I mean, I have a lot of religious relatives, and I don't think that there are good reasons to believe in religion. And yet, most of the things that trouble people, things that, worry them and that I worry about with respect to them, are about all sorts of stuff. Um, Relationship troubles, or anxiety, or fear of, X, Y, and Z. These are all things that I don't know. I don't know if I want to say more important than, like, our everlasting life, but the way that I see the world, these things are of utmost importance because they affect the quality of life that we have today.
Yeah, SE can be used on basically any claim. It doesn't necessarily have to do with a religious claim.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a lot of like Zoom SE conversations that you put on your channel. I was wondering if you could take us through your process right before you start the conversation. We call it step zero
Uh-huh.
in the SE community, basically. I'm curious what tips you might have for the rest of us that want to do this. What do you do to prepare, and what goes through your mind before you start the conversation itself?
Yeah. So most of the people that I've recorded videos with, or at least so there's been a number of videos that I've recorded and haven't put up and won't put up. But most of all of these conversations, I sent these people a message saying, "Hey, I'm trying this thing. I'm doing this crazy thing where I'm having conversations with people, um, and the goal is to be respectful, to listen, to help you uncover your reasons for believing these things. I want to talk about things that matter to you. And if you're interested, check out, these other ones that I've done, see if it seems interesting to you." And I think I've probably sent, going down my Facebook list and sending people messages. I've probably sent about 80 messages, and I've had 10 conversations or so. Well, I've had more than that, but at least the ones that are on YouTube, about 10. And they send me a message saying, "Oh, that sounds great. I don't know what I would talk about." That's what almost everybody says. And I say, it could be about anything. I send them to the Reddit called Change My View. I'll put a link into, I don't know if you can share this, but if you Google Change My View Reddit, it is a Reddit where people make claims. It's just a list of claims. I just pulled it up now. Here's a claim: second-degree murder is often worse than first-degree murder. So it's just claim after claim. And I asked them to look through it and see if anything grabs their heart. If anything makes them go, "Oh, that's so true," or "Oh, that's so false." And that's sort of the preparatory stuff. So then we meet on Zoom, and generally we speak for 30 minutes, sometimes an hour before the SE conversation starts. Catch up, see what's going on, talk about why I'm doing this, which we could talk about here, but probably you get the gist at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So there's probably a lot of rapport building that we're not able to see
Yeah, yeah,
from your channel. Yeah, that
yeah,
that that makes sense. And
yeah. It's
so,
it's mostly private conversation. It's mostly, "Hey, how's your wife? Hey, how's your daughter?" That kind of stuff.
yeah, 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 which is a natural way of, getting together. And
Yeah,
so the Reddit link is basically like some suggestions as to what claims to maybe examine, and then maybe those could generate some other views that they have that they might want to bring up, that kind of thing.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, my experience has been that when you ask someone what's something you believe that matters to you, most people go, I don't know. I don't have any beliefs."
Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
And unless they're like fervent religious or something like that, most people just don't feel like they organize their life around like a belief. But I tell you, you spend 1 minute reading Change My View, and you'll find something that grabs you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the opposite of the claim or whatever.
Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes they go, well, this one's interesting, and I'll say, well, how about, this variation of it? And they go, oh, that's it. Let's talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
I was fortunate enough to be able to do some tabling with Reed at UCLA one
Uh-huh.
day. And on his setup, on the other side of the camera, he's got like a list of
Yeah.
claims on these post-it notes.
Yeah.
And that seemed to really help people try to figure out what to talk about.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's kind of like that same thing. That's cool. Um,
Yeah.
how do you decide whom to invite on your Facebook list?
uh, you know, generally, I'm not inviting immediate family. Although I just put up a conversation with my brother. Mostly, it's people who have had. So at least for the YouTube, right? There's a difference between what I'm doing for my personal goals and what I'm doing on YouTube. That there's a vast difference between those conversations. Um, for YouTube, it's people who I know have had good conversations with in the past. People who like to think about shit, basically. But that's not the majority of people, right? I feel like the majority of people, speaking about population, speaking about maybe my family, speaking about everyone I know, most people, they get tired about talking about ideas, after 15 minutes. And most of the conversations I put on YouTube are over an hour. So it's just very different things.
Hmm. Yeah, I can think about going down my Facebook list.
Right,
and,
right.
no offense to any Facebook friends that are listening, but yeah, I I would have a list of people that I would
Right.
want to have this kind of conversation with, and there might be a short, probably list of people I may not. And
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
so I was curious how you decided, like, so it's based on you, the likelihood, or it's based on your past
Yeah,
conversations, basically,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And when I think, oh, I'd love to talk to this person about, their belief, um, it's that's a different sort of inquiry as to whether this conversation should go on YouTube.
Hmm. Yeah, that would be another question I have. How do you decide which ones to post and which ones not to?
Well, I think the very act of recording a conversation is unnatural.
Hmm.
And so
Right.
for a lot of people, I don't say, hey, let's record this conversation. I just call them up on the telephone, and say, hey, how's it going? And then when they make a claim, it's like, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to. Um, YouTube's a whole different beast, right? Because it's sort of unnatural to say, okay, I'm going to record this. It's going to start, and then people are going to watch it. That's kind of weird.
Hmm.
But so for those people, it's like, I don't know, people who just find this interesting. Maybe they messaged me because they saw a video and they were like, hey, I really like what you're doing, that kind of thing. They're already bought into the concept.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me to another interesting question that I usually ask our guests. And really, Alfonso, don't let me hog this whole thing. If you have if you have questions to ask, just chime in. I could do this for days. So, and then also anybody in the audience, they have a question. We got about 10 minutes left, so this is probably last call. But so, where are you as far as using street epistemology via text versus audio like this versus Zoom, where you can see each other, but you're not next to each other, versus in person? How does that, what's your preference, and how does the platform affect the way you go about engaging in street epistemology?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know a lot of people have really strong feelings about text. I think it's certainly easier to do it over voice, and you have even more information if you've got video to go along with it. But I think there's something to be said for, right, if there's one message I can drive home that I've probably said 100 times, is this is just another way of having conversations. So the next time you're on a forum, the next time you're on a comment section under a video or an article, and someone says something that you aren't sure is true, you don't have to post and say you're an idiot, you're wrong, haven't you thought about X, Y, and Z, haven't you thought about this fact, this article, this evidence. Instead, just ask them, what exactly are you saying? Are you saying, and then you restate it? How did you come to know this? How confident are you? What could change your mind? This takes a long time. This takes time, and I think that's why it's so frustrating to do it over text. But you can ask these questions over text, and I think if you're interested in making people think, if you're interested in helping people not be so dogmatic, then instead of saying, hey, you should see this article because you're wrong, ask them, hey, what makes you think that that's true? And that's fine over text.
Would you agree that having a okay, so the thing that you've been saying a lot of is it's just a better way of having a conversation.
Yeah.
Would you agree though that it's a different way of having a conversation? You know, like I guess because my underlying question is maybe you have some tips on how to make it more of a natural conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it. Like because it should be natural, right? It doesn't need to be this artificial thing, which I kind of think it's a problem, or maybe not a problem, but it's an artifact of us putting up YouTube videos. There's something artificial about that. We've captured this, event, but it doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to start here and end here. It can be part of a larger conversation. It's literally just you unilaterally deciding, I'm going to not make a claim. Somebody's come to talk to you, and you decide, I'm not going to make a claim. I'm just going to listen. And I'm going to ask clarifying questions. I'm going to see where they're coming from. And that can happen in the middle of a larger conversation, a normal conversation. You're at work, you hear somebody talking, maybe they say to you, hey, did you read the last article, blah, blah, blah. And you go, oh, this person is, the member of some belief, this cult of the mind, right? So they have some belief that they've gotten from the internet or whatever. And you can just say to them, hey, what makes you confident that that's true? How confident are you? How could you know that you're wrong? Like, these are just questions you can just say. It doesn't have to be part of a thing.
Yeah, like a game within a game.
Yeah, it's a conversation within a conversation in a way, but
right.
The best way to think of it is, it's just, I guess to just say it's not even a thing, right? It's just a different question. You can either say you're wrong, I read about an article that contradicts you, or how could you believe that? You're so stupid, or how could you believe that? It hurts so many people, right? That's one thing you can do. But another thing you can do is you can say, hey, let me understand what you're saying. Let me make sure I'm not jumping the gun here.
I was going to ask, is SE countercultural? But I think I would rather ask in the attitude of SE, how countercultural is street epistemology?
Well, I think the sad thing is that these days, many people's reactions to stuff is to make their own claim in kind. You hear a claim, you make a claim, you make a counterclaim. And so I'd say that is the culture. And so asking clarifying questions is definitely countercultural. It's a little unfortunate, but you can proselytize it by using it. And people go, oh, I much enjoy talking to my friend who asks me about my deeply held beliefs instead of contradicting me. And, I don't have to cut them out of my life. And so I'd love for it to be more natural, to be more culturally accepted or to become the cultural norm. And I kind of think it has a chance to do so. Like, if people see, hey, this works really well, I get to maintain relationships with people, I get to understand them better, and we don't get into arguing, yelling matches. I think there's a good chance that people might adopt some of these things. I've had a lot of friends come back to me after doing these SE conversations, and they said, a week after we talked, my wife said this ridiculous thing, and instead of saying you're wrong, you're an idiot, or whatever, I'm exaggerating, but instead of saying you're wrong, I slowed down and I asked them, where are you coming from? I don't see how you got there. Help me get to the same place. And they said it was like night and day. The quality of the conversation just changed. So I think there's a chance for it to become the new culture.
Yeah, I'm convinced, well, the way I feel about it is it's refreshingly countercultural.
Yeah.
So we just have literally a couple minutes left. If anybody in the audience has been wanting to ask a question, now would be the time. I want to thank Chucky, you for coming on with us today. It's been awesome. We've been able to kind of hammer out a lot of things that I've been thinking about. You're welcome to come back and join us anytime you'd like. If you happen to be in the room, feel free to come up on the panel and help us answer questions and stuff. It's been a really good room today. I appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. It's a different experience I felt free to make all the claims that I want today.
Yeah, good.
I'll just say, if anyone, I don't know, watches the videos that I've put up, or is interested in some of the stuff that I've been talking about, if they want to have a conversation, I'd be interested in it. Offline. I mean, online, but outside of this club meeting room.
Yeah, and Chucky's YouTube channel link is at the top of the screen. I'm gonna have that link in the description of the YouTube video that I make with this conversation in it. So if you miss it here, you can see it there. Also, I want to thank Early for facilitating the room again. It's always nice to have your help here with doing that. And Alfonso, always a pleasure to have you in the room too. So, yeah, if there's not anything else, we'll go ahead in the room. If anybody wants to add anything, go ahead. And otherwise, we'll see you next. Oh, one announcement. Next week's room is going to be 2 hours early to accommodate. We're going to have Eddie Tracy in. Um, so we have to start 2 hours early next Saturday. So just keep that in mind. Anybody have anything else before we in the room?
I'm good for now, Alfonso.
He's probably
I mean,
busy picking up all the candy from the
yeah,
piñata that was broken
don't need too
earlier.
much candy, Alfonso.
Get the Smarties. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks again, David. This was fun.
Adios.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep in touch, Chucky. We'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Finally, I couldn't unmute. My phone was stuck. Thank you, guys.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast and want to join the conversation or just listen in, you can find us in the Street Epistemology Club on the Clubhouse app Saturday afternoon starting at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Until next time, keep asking questions.